These 5 stocks are setting up for huge moves, in my opinion, in 2025, and that's why I'm calling them out now, so when they do set up, you guys can capitalize. My name is Zach. I'm a full-time trader and analyst in the Stock Dad's Discord, and if you missed my 2024 video, here are the stocks that I covered. The first one was talking about MSTR at 154.
Lastly, MSTR, my most speculative name. I think if Bitcoin rallies, this thing's going to see 200 plus before end of year.
And sure enough, not only did we get to 200, we got to 200 within 1 month and absolutely crushed my price target, going from 154 hitting over 500. Number 2 was in Moderna.
Number 4, I think Moderna's done. I think this name sees sub $50 before year end.
About $64, and I said by end of year it would get sub 50. And so sure enough, that got down to a low of $36 in the end of November, absolutely crushing my price target again. Next one I talked about was in Netflix.
Number 3, I think Netflix has another 10% to go. I think it touches at least 800 before end of year.
Keep in mind, a big stock like Netflix, that's a pretty big move. A 10% move adds a lot of market cap on a stock like that. Ran from about 710 or so all the way up to about 930, 940. Absolutely crushing my price target once again. Number 4 was an SE.
Number 2, I think SE ends the year in triple digits, and I think it could touch 130 by end of year.
We felt just shy of my price target, hitting around 120. So we didn't quite get to that 130 marker, but nonetheless, a move from around 94 to around 120 in a couple of months. Super solid. And lastly, the big home run, I talked about Tesla.
One, I think Tesla's going to break 300 before the year ends.
So it did have a slight dip, but then as we know, went absolutely nuclear, getting to almost 500 before the end of the year. My target was 300, and we absolutely crushed that. So guys, if you didn't catch any of those, or you just struggled as a whole trading in 2023 or 2024, make sure you stay to the end on this video. My last stock on the list is my favorite one to trade, and I think it's set up for another big year. So number 1 on this list, guys, is Coinbase. Coinbase, I believe, is going to get back to the all-time highs. If we look at the monthly chart here with no levels, with no EMAs, nothing like that, we can see that from IPO date, it initially opened at 380, spiked up higher, and then, spent most of its existence in a downtrend. Now we turn on these EMAs and we can see now that we are now in a monthly uptrend. On top of that, we're in a weekly uptrend, right? So talking about the current market setup right now, we have a monthly uptrend and a weekly uptrend. The only somewhat problem as of now is the daily is in a downtrend, right? So the daily is in downtrend. As you can see, the 8 and 20 EMA is pointed down. Very easy way to identify that we're in a downtrend. So my setup for coin is I'm waiting for a daily flip back to the upside to look for a new entry long. But I do believe that, because Bitcoin went on this crazy run and it happened so fast, it does need to consolidate. And what most likely is going to happen, and what has happened, are these crypto related stocks are also going to consolidate. Keep in mind, guys, once retail gets really involved in crypto and Bitcoin, etc., Coinbase is where they're going to go. It's the largest exchange, the largest retail exchange in the world. So, once this really becomes mainstream and all retail is on board, Coinbase, in my opinion, will fly and, move from about 250 back to the previous all-time high around 420. Definitely feasible. It's a big move, about 70% or so, but I do think this could happen before the end of the year. Number 2, you guys may think I'm crazy, but just bear with me here, is GameStop. Right? So GameStop here is actually setting up for the first time in a long, long time. And why do I say this, right? So GameStop is known for having these major squeezes, right? And so one of my ideas for this year is that we're going to have one final squeeze, or maybe even sustained run back up to about 65 to 70 plus, maybe even up to 100. Why? And again, this is going to have a lot of speculation involved, of course, but because of what's happened recently with GameStop, they have so much cash on hand. If they decide to do anything innovative with this, maybe get into the crypto space, somehow incorporate AI, anything, right? They have all this cash on hand. They can really now change their business model. And on top of that, this chart is flipping to a monthly uptrend for the first time since this big spike up from 2020, right? So again, am I saying that we're going to have another 10x squeeze, 20x squeeze from like when we went from 5 to 100 plus? No, I'm not saying that. But I definitely do think it's feasible to get up to about $50, $60 again. And maybe this time not necessarily a squeeze. Maybe this is just some type of sustained run because of a shift in the business model, or maybe a sustained run because just the chart looks good. But one of my hot takes for this year is that GameStop will cruise towards the end of 2025. Number 3, kind of piggybacking on my previous video, also getting into Moderna again. I don't want to feel like that I'm preying on Moderna's downfall. But in my opinion, this stock was a nothing before the COVID vaccine and before COVID. It really wasn't anything major. And so I do think we're going to revert back to the mean, back to these COVID levels. So if we throw on my drawings here, we actually have a bit of a gap to be filled down here towards $25. And that's where I'm kind of thinking it's going to head. I think we're going to head back down sub 30 for sure. And it just may take some time because this stock has recently gotten smoked, right? And so if you look at the daily chart here, it's been in a daily downtrend for quite some time. I called out that short around here, around $65, and we got that accelerated sell down to that 30. Now I think it needs to cool off a little bit, maybe go range bound, and I think we'll see what happens moving forward. But looking at this weekly chart right here, we just got some type of failure to go higher here. So now this weekly candle closes back underneath the 8 moving average here on the weekly chart. I think we can see some continued downside in a form of this little weekly bear flag here, right? So again, we'll see what happens. We may need the weekly 20 EMA to catch up a little bit more to price, but this is definitely one on my radar if looking to the short side this year. I know you guys are crazy Tesla fans, so make sure you guys stay to the end because number 5 is about Tesla and why I think it still has a lot left in the tank for 2025. But now for number 4, don't get mad at me, but hear me out here. Number 4 is actually Alibaba. So Alibaba for most has been an absolute headache for the longest time, but I'll tell you why I think Alibaba has a chance to finally break out of this downtrend, right? So obviously when dealing with, these ADRs, these foreign companies, and, in particular this Chinese sector, right? We do need a little bit of fiscal policy change over there and a little bit of a fundamental, catalyst to send this higher, right? Because obviously those are parts of trading we cannot control. However, look here, Alibaba is on the verge of trying to flip the monthly chart. And if you look, this is the first, excuse some of my drawings, but this is the first possible monthly flip to the upside since here. So the monthly hasn't been in an uptrend since the middle of 2021. So basically all of 2022, all of 2023, all of 2024, and part of 2021. So that was 3.5 years in a monthly downtrend. Now we did get that monthly close over the 20 EMA for the first time in three and a half years, but now the monthly chart needs to flip. So if we do put in some type of higher low here and end up going higher, it'll look something like this, right? And this monthly ends up flipping somewhere in this region here. I do think we're set to push higher to that 150 area. As you guys can see here, a huge resistance over time has been this 115, 120 area. However, if we can finally break that, I personally think 150 would be a conservative target. But again, we're trying to be somewhat realistic with these targets here this year. And so if you were to just, for example, pull a reverse fib from this high to this most recent low, here's what we get. So, I'll just do this ballpark, right? The inverse golden pocket, which is in theory where the longs are going to take profit, is around this 220. So if we get to the 0.382, which is my target, that's roughly that 150 number that I got from. So essentially we need to break this 118, 120, as I mentioned. And then above that, I think we're set off for 150 to 155, guys. And now before we hop into Tesla, guys, if you could do me a favor and drop me a like and follow, it really helps the video and the channel grow. Obviously, I want to be putting out more content for you guys, so I want to make sure these videos go crazy. So without wasting any more time, here we go, guys. Number 5 on my list is Tesla. I think that Tesla can get to over 600 this year. And I know, guys, this sounds absolutely crazy, but just hear me out, right? If we look at Tesla, I like to draw certain fibs and retracements from COVID low to previous high to previous pivot. So one pivot that we have is from right here, the COVID low to the previous high, which is right here. And where do we spend a lot of our time? Bouncing at this golden pocket area. So now you guys can see all we're really doing now is spending a lot of time retesting this previous all-time high area. If we go back to the daily chart, right, we're going to probably spend a lot of time between this 380 and 415 area, which is the previous all-time high, right? Now, our first fib target is sitting at that 508 number. And I do think that, at the time of recording this, it's January, first month of the year. We're probably going to put in an inside monthly bar, which will likely set the stage for the next month and probably the rest of this quarter, filling that out and maybe setting up some type of monthly 1, 2, 3, right? From there, our target is 508. That may take a month. That may take a week. We don't know when that target and if that target will be hit. But what we do know is that when we're in fresh new all-time highs, what we look for then is our next fib target. And so if we scroll up, That's our next target, that 650 area, that negative 0.618. So I do think that Tesla can get up there, but it needs to do two things. And these are not subjective. These are musts, right? It has to spend some time consolidating. It doesn't matter if it's a couple weeks, couple months, it needs to spend time consolidating. If you look at Tesla, it spent years consolidating, right? It spent 2+ years consolidating in a pretty big range, yes, but between 260 and 160, it spent a lot of time. And now we got that huge impulse, right? That huge impulse move. So now what I would like to see is one of two things. I would like to see either the monthly 8 EMA come up to price and tag it, or if not, I would like to see a weekly buy setup off of the 20 EMA. And ideally for me, this comes via consolidation. I go over this topic in other videos, but monthly EMAs are super powerful, and EMAs can only be tagged in one of two ways, via time or via price directly. So in this scenario, I'm hoping that the EMAs catch up through time, which means more time plays out, which means a longer consolidation. So ideally, the rest of this month and maybe next month, we consolidate a bit, allow these EMAs to come up and act as a support, act as a launch pad for that next leg up. And so for me, it becomes pretty clear. Once I get more data, once we get that consolidation and those EMA tags, I'll look for the break of the highs. And even if I miss the dead bottom, what I do know is that when we break 508, we should have a nice shot up towards that 657 at some point this year. And that's my last stock for 2025, guys. That's my last setup. As always, I signal all of my trades in the Stock Dad Discord. So if you're not already in there, guys, follow along with me and the team. I appreciate you guys for tuning into this video, and I'll be dropping more videos soon. Have a good rest of the day. I'll catch you guys later.